I mean, 1889.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're talking 100 years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and,
yeah, I knew what you meant.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah.
Call to order this Board of Directors meeting for March 4th, 2025. Roll call.
Blair. Here. Burns.
Here.
Wiles.
Here.
Hunt.
Here.
Rissler. Here. Allen.
Here.
Carroll.
Here.
Thank you. At this time, if you all will please stand with me as Director Burns leads us in prayer, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Father in heaven, we thank you again for the privilege to serve the community of Siloam Springs. I pray for patience and understanding as we meet the challenges of growth and development in our community. We are eternally grateful for those that provide our freedom, past, present, and future. And it's in your name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I would like to ask anyone that has an electronic device to please silence that or turn that off so we don't have an interruption during our meeting.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Just to let the board know, during consent agenda, we don't have any minutes in there this time, just with the delay and with the weather. We'd already sent the agenda out by the time we had the meeting and didn't get the minutes done until Thursday, Friday. So again, you'll get double minutes next meeting.
Thank you, sir. And so before I move on into public input, I want to have a little discussion, I guess, with myself, the board, and our public. I feel like that I have not done a really good job as your mayor because we adopt rules and regulations and the things that we as a board and as a mayor should do and how we should present ourselves, the order that we should have during our meetings. And I'm sorry I was not here last week. I was ill. But I did have an opportunity to watch our meeting. And I have had questions from citizens, both coming to me at my work, seeing me out, calling me, and I know that our directors hear from our citizens all the time. But they are asking me, as a mayor, what has happened to the order that we used to have in our meetings? So I think, as the mayor, I would like to remind not only myself, but all of us what we are expected to do and how we are to act during our meetings, because we are elected officials to set the example and to make sure that we represent every person in the city, not 4 or 5, not 30 or 40, not 100. We've got 20,000 people in the city that watch us. And not only they are watching us, but other cities are watching us. And other cities have asked me. So I think as a mayor, that is my responsibility. That is one of the things that it says in what is the mayor's responsibilities. And one of those is to direct the meeting. That's what I'm supposed to do. So I think that I would just like to take a few minutes and just remind us all that whenever we're having public comments, that there is to be no electronic visual aid presentations, but the public may submit photos, petitions, and et cetera to be distributed to the board of directors. They are supposed to be delivered to our city clerk prior to our meeting. So I would like to ask if you are going to be speaking to this board during public input, that you have those things to our city clerk so she can distribute them to the board. It also talks about courtesy and respect, that all members of the public, all city staff, and elected officials shall accord the utmost courtesy and respect to each other at all times. All shall refrain from rude or derogatory remarks, reflections as to integrity, abusive comments, and statements about motives or personalities. That's under public comments. Under duties and privileges of directors at board meetings. Conduct. During the Board of Directors meetings, city directors shall preserve order and decorum and shall neither by conversation or otherwise delay or interrupt the proceedings. Neither shall they refuse to obey the orders of the mayor or the rules of the Board of Directors. Every member of the Board of Directors desiring to speak shall address the mayor and upon recognition shall confine herself or himself to the question under debate and shall avoid all personalities and decorous language. A Board of Director member, once recognized, shall not be interrupted while speaking unless called to order by the mayor, unless a point of order is raised by another member or unless the member chooses to yield to questions from another member. All members of the Board of Directors shall accord the utmost courtesy to each other, to city employees, and to members of the public appearing before the Board of Directors, and shall refrain at all times from rude or derogatory remarks, reflections as to integrity, abusive comments, and statements as to motives and personalities. Board of Directors members shall confine their questions to the particular matters before the Board of Directors, and in debate shall confine their remarks to the issues before the Board of Directors. I think these are good rules. This board thought so too, because they voted to pass these and put these in place for us to follow. So, beginning with this meeting, we are going to conduct ourselves a little differently. And if I feel that I need to call a point of order, I will do so. And you may not disagree, you may disagree with me, and you certainly have that right because you are the elected officials, but so am I. So I am going to respect you, and I am going to try to make this board meeting as professional as we can, because that's what we are called to do. So thank you for allowing me that time. I just felt like that was something that I needed to say because I've been questioned by so many people. With that, we will move into our public input time. And I would ask if there is anyone here that would like to address this board on any item that is not on the regular agenda. Please come to the podium, give us your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Rebecca Wyatt, 1109 East Jewel Street. And I know this isn't really what you were talking about, but Madam Mayor and Board of Directors. I get so nervous when I get up here that I forget how I'm supposed to address you. So thank you so much for the words. They were really nice. I wanted to bring up a topic, and I'm going to just read this. As we know, the city staff is working on consolidating our Uniform Development Code. I would like to ask to have a town hall meeting that is live and recorded with full public input, so that there's plenty of time for people to ask questions and get answers, and that it can be recorded for people to listen to later, to go back over. There's a lot of questions from people like me that don't know a lot about a uniform development code. And we have concerns. Last year, I went to the meeting at the library in August, and it almost was not going to have any public input time. So people arrived and thought there was going to be public input time, and it was not going to happen. And then Megan was so gracious as to allow public input, and I really appreciated that. And then we had a meeting this last week on public input, but it wasn't live and it wasn't recorded so that everybody could hear everybody's questions and answers. So if that's something that could happen, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and Board of Directors.
Thank you, Rebecca. Is there anyone else? If not, is there anyone that would like to address an item that is on our consent agenda? There is no one, so we will move into our consent agenda. No, I'm sorry, we're going to go to our presentations. I'm sorry. Looks like Scott Miller, our Chief of Police, is going to talk about our Leadership and Wellness Summit.
Madam Mayor, if I
Yes,
may,
sir.
before Chief starts, just want to really hats off to Chief and his staff. What you're about to see is not easy for a police officer. And, you know, when I was still chief over there, this was near and dear, and Scott doesn't take credit for it, but it's very near and dear to him when we lost an officer in the line of duty. And through my career, I've lost many. And mental illness is serious. So, again, just understand with these guys, and this isn't easy for them to tell their story, but I just wanted to compliment Chief and the job he's doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the board, I just wanted to give you a quick update and say a few words about our Leadership, Wellness, and Resiliency Summit that we hosted here in Siloam Springs on January 30th of this year. We were honored to be the first hosting agency for the first ever Leadership, Wellness, and Resiliency Summit. We hosted more than 100 chiefs, sheriffs, and upper command staffs throughout the state. I want to thank Secretary Mike Hager, Director Chapman with the CLEST and their teams for helping us present this vital and important event. Most importantly, I want to thank you all on behalf of all of our first responders. Chief Kendall and I want to thank you and each one of you for your continued support for not only this initiative, but each of our departments. Our approach to resiliency and wellness is summed up in the program's vision: fortifying our first responders and officers' mental health and well-being through a holistic approach. 1857, the city of Baltimore became the first police department to issue handguns to their officers. 1858, the police departments at Boston and Chicago issued uniforms. 1974, officers began to wear soft body armor for protection, personal protection against handguns. In the 1990s, we saw law enforcement begin the transition from revolving service weapons to automatic handguns. February 1997, the North Hollywood shootout began another transition in law enforcement with the issuing of patrol rifles and more substantial firearms for the safety of officers and public. Once again, law enforcement leadership throughout the country and in this state find themselves facing a paradigm shift. Just as we faced transitions and periods before within our personal lives in this profession, we also face them as leaderships and communities. Mental fitness and readiness is just as important today as physical fitness, personal protective equipment, and training. You have all heard me say this before, but it's worth saying again. Ballistic vests, gloves, pistols, rifles, these are all things that we use to protect our police officers and firefighters. But one area we have been lacking is protecting the most vital tool that they have, their minds. In the past several years, we have been committed to improving officer resiliency, mental health, and overall holistic wellness for our first responders. with the simple concept of mind, body, and spirit, focusing on mental health, well-being, physical fitness for every officer, dispatcher, employee, firefighter of each department. Your Siloam Springs Police Department is spearheading a statewide initiative, setting an example for other departments to model. We have recently been asked to share this information in our model policy throughout the state, beginning in June in Little Rock. Now, I can sit up here and I can tell you the importance of this initiative and the impacts it has already had within our department. But much better than me telling you my words, I would like to share a very brave young man's video with you.
In 2023, my mental illness took a hit. There was no way I was going to survive. I was 8 years in, and there was no way I was going to survive 22 more years of critical incidents like I've already experienced. I had a failing marriage. I was just struggling. Spent 5 months in such a dark spot that I looked at my service weapon before and after each shift and just thought, what if? And that was a scary place to be. I had a child, and I was wanting to be everything I could be for them, but I was bad off. And I was able to go to my captain and my now chief and told them I needed help. Like, I had that relationship with them both on the job and just in the years that we've had together. There was a friendship of sorts, and I was able to look at them both and say, I need help. I couldn't do it anymore. June of 2023, I had that conversation of like I needed help. The next day I was on the phone with a professional setting up, getting me a therapist that, suited what I was looking for and my personality. I got my first 12 sessions, and during those sessions, how do you unpack 8 years of critical incidents both on and off the job? And you physically and mentally can't. So it came to a point that my 12 sessions was running out, and thanks to our policy and how it's written on a case-by-case basis, we can get extensions. And I went to Chief Miller and said, hey, my therapist says I need more, and I feel like I need more too. And he got it approved. By the end of 2023, I had had 18 sessions. And with the new year starting, I got 12 more sessions. And in all that time, Chief Miller and Captain Aviles were sitting down with me once a week, if not more, and letting me vent and air out my frustrations in my personal life or things I was going through in my head with, incidents I'd had, without fear of repercussions and getting pulled from my duties. And there was just that tight-knit bond between us of like they were really caring for me, and honestly it was love.
There's been that stigma throughout law enforcement, even when I started as a police officer in 2008, that you just got to suck it up. And that mentality is killing us, literally killing us, and we have to change that. I'm sure everybody at the conference knows somebody who has committed suicide that's worn the badge, and that has to end, because we can't just say that we're going to make our officers physically bulletproof but not protect their heart and their soul at the same time. And that's the mentality that has to change in this department. This program has really taken that to the next level of making that not just a priority, but almost the priority, because we are at a critical state in our nation when we need that for our officers. When I started here as an officer, we were still under the old mentality of you just have to suck it up. This is the job, and if you can't handle it, you need to get out. And we struggled as a department, and this was all because we weren't ready as a department. We did not have a readiness program. We did not have a mental health program. We did not have a chaplain corps. And so we didn't have a peer-to-peer program. So these are all things that have been implemented now and are being implemented now, and in the future is going to set us up for success. Before, officers that needed to get help, that have gotten help, they wouldn't have gotten the help. They would have been another statistic. And, you know, I knew Officer McFerrin, who committed suicide here, and I was friends with him, and I was close to him. And I was just looking on my phone the other day, and he was on my favorites list. I was like, oh, I'd like to call him. But, you know, I don't get to call him now. But if I want to prevent another Officer McFerrin from ever happening again in this department, if I can do everything I can, I'm going to prevent it.
Still in therapy today, and I've gone from 4 sessions a month to 2 sessions a month. It works. It's helped me keep my longevity to survive the next, 20 years in law enforcement, and everything with how the public's evolving and our critical incidents are getting worse and everything else. I can survive those mentally, physically. I'm capable. My mind is strong. My body is strong. My spirit is strong, stronger than ever. And because of my continued support of command staff and them not hesitating and recognizing, nope, he needs help. We need to absolutely help him. And then checking in on me and everything they did, I can continue to be the best version of myself for my coworkers, my family, and my kids.
And I just want the officers to always know that they can feel safe talking to me, unless I'm a mandated reporter. But if it's outside of those few things that I have to report by state law, they can tell me anything they want to tell me, and I'm not going to tell anybody, and I'm not going to divulge any information unless they give me permission. So a lot of times they come to me because they don't know what to do, and I can give them guidance and I can give them direction, and with their permission, I can get them the help they need. But with a struggling officer, my first thing is to just make them feel safe. And I do that by building a rapport. Like, I ride out with 4 officers a week, and I spend several hours a week with the officers. And so building that rapport, building relationships, building friendships, and showing them that I care about them. But I choose to be here because I have been called here by my God, and I believe that this is where I am supposed to be, and I want to serve the officers. It is my hope that the Wellness and Resiliency program and the chaplain program will provide care and support and a path forward to allow the officers to have healing, because they need somebody to care for them too. Who's going to fight for the officers? I'm going to fight for the officers. And I know that our chief of police is going to fight for the officers. We need somebody who actually is going to stand up and fight for the wellness of our officers. And I believe if we do that, we're going to have a much more professional police department, a much more prepared police department, a police department that is resilient, and a police department that can face any problem that is thrown at them.
Just thank you. Truly from the bottom of my heart, thank you, because without Chief Miller and Captain Aviles, I wouldn't be here. Again, that 5-month period of looking at my service weapon, I never came forward. I was afraid to come forward because I didn't want to get sidelined. What I needed was motivation to be driven, something to distract me from my thoughts, and that's where work came into play. But it got to that point that it was bad, and because of their personal level with me, I was able to just sit down, and I told myself, whatever happens, happens, but I can't keep doing this. And so I felt comfortable. I said what needed to be said, and just thank you to both of them, honestly. Again, I wouldn't be here without them.
And to put things into more of a perspective, everybody looks at small towns, especially those of ours in the caliber of town that we live in, and they think that it doesn't happen. Our officers see at least 1 death a month. They work at least 10 major accidents a month. where they see their fellow citizens, their neighbors, their kids' friends, the people they coach at ball games in dire, bad situations. It is time for this shift, and I am thankful that we have a board and a community that stands behind us to make this initiative. And I am happy to share that with you, and I'm proud that our department and our city is leading the state in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And next we have Jason Davis, Public Services, the Processing Group.
Madam Mayor, board members, I've brought John Reardon here today. He's with the Process Group. He's going to give us a little bit of an update on our waste to energy project that we've been working on. So John, if you would.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Board, Directors. Let's see. I'll just scroll through it. Okay. So we'll describe the waste energy study that we're working on and the progress we're making, and then some of the next steps as well. So I want to start out by just describing what is the general concept, So the idea is that the mixed solid waste would come in to the facility, and then there'd be a separation. I don't know if you can see that, but it's basically a material recovery facility where we would separate recyclables from residues, and then green waste, I'll call it biogenic waste, so it'd be like yard waste and even paper and cardboard and things like this, that then would go into an energy plant where we would mainly focus on biopower right now in the study, although there are other opportunities to make other products from the green waste. Mainly we're focusing here on the biopower at this point. So in this study, the process group teamed with Olson, who has a local office in Fayetteville, and where we also had some subject matter expertise with Paul Crawford specifically, who's with Olson, who actually had worked on some of the local permitting of landfills. And the study basically involves several different tasks, and I'll just scroll to the next slide to get into a little more detail on that. The first one is site selection, so looking at what would be the footprint of the material recovery facility, and then what would be the footprint or the size of a biopower system that would consume the residues. Yes. Sure. So a material recovery facility is a system that processes and separates recyclables which have value, so aluminum, steel, plastic number one, like polyethylene terephthalate, plastic number two, which is high-density polyethylene, and other plastics that all can have different value profiles. So that then generates revenue to help pay for the processing of that and the equipment. So the material recovery facility is really a major part of it because it actually generates the most revenue from the processing of the waste. And then the residue that's produced from that, mostly the green waste, can then be used for making power that can, as the city grows, the population grows, the power demand grows, so that can help offset that growth in power demand. So the market study involves evaluating what are the feedstock, how much could be generated from Siloam Springs and the surrounding communities. And then that becomes the basis for our sizing of the different equipment. And then once we get through that part, the next step is getting into a little bit more, it's still conceptual engineering, high level, where we're evaluating the cost of the equipment, the product revenues, and the overall return on investment potential. And then the task 4 is also facilitating support for the city in pursuing any funding options, whether they're grant or other funding So here's some of the initial results of the feedstock study. And what we did was we used an EPA factor of just under 5 pounds per person per day for municipal solid waste, and some rules of thumb as well that approximately 60% of the waste generated in a community is from household municipal solid waste, and about 30% is from commercial, and then 10% is industrial. So just focusing on just the municipal solid waste from the community, if you look at the different communities that we're targeting, so first of all, Siloam Springs, Rogers, Bentonville, and Centerton, the capacity of that, and we're forecasting up to 2030 to try to get an idea of when a facility might be built, just forecasting ahead. It looks like roughly a 50-ton per hour system for the material recovery facility would be about the right size. And one of the companies we're talking to, they have a 25-ton per hour and a 50-ton per hour system. So they're modules, and so you could put one 50-ton per hour and then in the future expand to another 50-ton per hour. Or could start with a smaller unit that they call their pilot plant the 25-ton per hour. So this helps give an appreciation of the participation that would be needed to get to 50 tons per hour for their commercial system. And then if with additional participation could get even up to 100 tons per hour. But you could also look at it as you forecast into the future with population growth, that in some point in the future, you could expand to a larger unit, 100 ton per year. So the idea is that what we're kind of recommending at this point would be to consider a 50 ton per hour system and leave room to expand to another 50 ton per hour at some point in the future. And of course, if there's larger participation initially, you could start even with potentially a larger unit. This will give a little bit of detail of what one might look like. It's drawn somewhat of a cartoon, but because the information I received was marked confidential, so I didn't want to put the details on here. But essentially, the material recovery facility would involve a tipping floor where the waste would come in the front gate, be tipped onto the floor, and then it'd be processed through a number of different conveyor systems and separation units. And this particular technology that we're looking at uses some AI, some vision cameras that recognizes what the different materials are, and then separates the materials on different systems, and then you end up with the different products. So the products then go into this baler, and then for storage and product loadout. And so this is basically the idea, and you can see a little picture up here of what the equipment looks like. It looks like conveyors and vision systems and some separation equipment.
Now, if I could ask you a question, where you could explain to the board, this conversation you and I had today, this would help recycling, so we wouldn't have to do a lot of the sorting. This would do that for us. Could you kind of
this would do
explain that to the
sorting,
board?
so you could basically use one bin system as an option. You know, if there already is some separation, then that could also come in and be processed as well. So the separation system can take a mixed recyclables and process those, but it can also take just the overall municipal solid waste and process it as well. Roughly half of what will come in will be what I'll call biomass. And so that wouldn't have, recyclable value, but you could use it to make compost, which there's a limited market for, or we think, you could use it to produce energy. So here is, as I'm showing, then that energy facility might look a little bit like this on one side, where the material, the most simple version of this could just be using front-end loaders to move it into feeders. The feeders go into boilers, so behind this wall are some power boilers. Here's a data table, which I can leave for people to review in detail, but the idea is to separate out cardboard, which has a value, paper, plastics 1 and 2 primarily, and then other plastics, aluminum and steel. So these are the target recovery. The systems, they believe they can achieve a greater 90% and 95% is achievable. And so we estimated what that would be in terms of tons, what the residues would be, and then the other materials, the food waste, yard trimmings, and other things that would comprise what I'll call biomass or green waste. And so you get approximately 23 tons an hour of recycled products and 27 tons an hour of the residues. And so what we've done is identified at least one option. This is what I call the simpler of the technology options, which essentially has a gasification stage at the bottom with overfire air, and then a heat recovery boiler, and then gas cleanup, and electrostatic precipitator, emission control, and then venting. So you have essentially a boiler house, emission control, and then you generate power from the steam. So right now, as we're looking at it, probably around 5 megawatts is potential for the 50 ton per hour system, to give you an idea. And that's where we are now. So the next steps, we will be continuing to refine the details on the equipment, work on a plot plan concept. And right now we're looking at 3 different sites, but we're going to put a lot of effort into the existing facility to try to see if we can fit it onto the existing footprint, and then develop cost estimate and a pro forma that we'll deliver in our report. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are there any questions?
I do want to point out one. When John is showing you this is trash that's being brought in that we're going to take the recycled material out of, okay? So I want to make that clear. This is additional recycling that would be collected on the front end. So I just want to make sure you guys were aware of that moving forward as well. So these numbers this is what would come in, but typically with your trash, and we would separate that material out and collect that. And what we'd be left with is what we would take and then put into the power boiler. So.
Very good. Directors, do you have any questions for Jason or John?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Brad.
So are there any thought to a regional partnership for cost sharing on this?
Yes, absolutely. Right now, our main focus is to get the preliminary numbers, and then we can kind of look at what's next. So as soon as John finishes with his numbers and gives us a final, then we'll sit down and really hash out what we'll do next. But this is a regional problem. And last week with a House bill that was trying to get pushed through, this type of setup would help the region if that happened. Luckily, the bill fell and had to get rewritten to our well, where it should be. But yes, that is something that we could look at and potentially will look at, depending on the number. We just don't know how much it's going to cost yet. So, one last thing I did want to mention too, the power system that John's showing us, this Hearst boiler, is United States made. It's actually made, I think, in Georgia, and so that is another thing that we liked about it as well. So if something does happen or parts, we're here. We're in the United States. So.
Jason also wanted to comment that a similar system, the same exact model of boiler, is being installed in South Central Arkansas, and so there'd be an opportunity to go and tour the facility. And I'm working with Jason to set that up, and would you, I suppose, extend invitations for whoever would like to go see that? So you can see a similar type of system in operation. And
they're also modular, I would say.
And they're modular, so then you can expand by just adding additional modules, so it makes it easy to expand. Also, the same opportunity exists to tour a material recovery facility in Virginia, that's in Portsmouth, Virginia, that's operating, so you could see that also in operation. So you can see these two components in actual operation, both U.S. companies, U.S.-made equipment. So.
And board, just so you know, John and I were talking and Jason today, the cost is a big concern to myself, and I know the board and our citizens. So one of the things that we want to do is we're going to keep our eyes open, because we don't know if the same grants today are going to be available in 2 months. So again, we're going to be looking for grant funding, state funding, anything that we we can do, but it's hard to do that until we know the numbers. I can't guess if it's 50 million or, 300 million. I don't know. They can't tell me. So, once we get that, I'll be able to give you more.
Thank you. Yes, Lisa?
I want to say thank you for giving us an update. I attended the ADEQ meeting in Tawnytown last week.
Okay.
And did you watch it? Was you able to watch it?
No.
And it sounds like they're not too far off from making a decision, and it might close that landfill sooner than we expect. And some of the things that were said, and it's amazing that it's stayed operational this long. I mean, they had a 9-year-old little boy stand up who was paralyzed from the waist down. Then he got paralyzed from the neck down. Then he had to go to Tennessee and get medical attention, and now he takes medicine every day to keep the poisons out of his body. And so when we know that, what kind of timeline, how is that going to affect, like, we're working on this project, and this may be a Jason question, and we're looking at this, and like Brad said, maybe a regional, maybe a local, I don't know, but what kind of timeline are we looking at?
Sure. So if we pursue grant funding, usually there's a fairly long time cycle. It could be 6 to 9 months from when you submit the grant before you find out if you won the award. So outside of that funding cycle part of it, the engineering and construction, I would say, would be around 18 months to 24 months. So the engineering cycle would be 9 to 12 months, and then the construction would be about 12 months approximately.
So in the meantime, would we be able to take our trash down to the central Arkansas where they're putting this in operations?
No, I don't know if that one includes the material recovery facility. I think that's mainly green waste to energy at that place. But it's essentially the same idea. The difference here would be the front end would be the material recovery facility, separating out the recyclables from the green waste and then the energy plant. But the two components together we could tour those in two separate facilities. Yeah.
Alan, did you have something?
And Director Rutherford, too, is one of the things I have Jason looking into, because I hear the same thing you're hearing, and I'm in meetings. If this I believe the landfill will close sooner than later. So I have Jason looking into, what do we do? So we're looking at, are we going to go across state lines? How much is this going to cost? Because that's, with cards right now, they're going across state lines with Fayetteville and Rogers. So we're looking at those avenues on what we'll do, because the bill came up pretty quick on me last week, and it could have got shut down last week. So if that happens, we need to have a plan. So that's what we're in the process of doing.
Yeah, the ADEQ hasn't issued their permit, but they're supposed to make a decision, and they said within 3 to 6 months. At that meeting, that's what they said. And we had, Dees was there, Tyler Dees was there, Lundstrom was there, and Unger was there. There was some representation from the state there.
Sure. Well, I think this is a really important problem, and it's clearly a local problem, but also nationwide. The same issue. There are landfills that are near closing all across the country, and this concept I think could work really well and benefit our waste here in the United States. So, and it gives an opportunity for Arkansas to be a leader in this as well. So, and I have kids at home, and have had one who had spent some time in the hospital, and my heart goes out to that family, with the sick child. That's heartbreaking. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good meeting. People should watch it to know what's going on and the poisons that are coming from there.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you all very much. Appreciate your input.
Thank you.
And your update. So with that, we will move to our consent agenda. And there is only one item, Resolution 11-25, amending certain purchasing requirements for utility inventory. Directors, is there any comments or questions on this resolution? There being none, do I have a motion to approve our consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Burns,
Yes.
Wiles,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Blair.
Yes. Motion is approved. So we will move to our regularly scheduled items, staff reports for 2024 year-end financials. Christina?
Mayor, members of the board, Christina Patricius, Finance Director. So I'm not going to read the memo this time, but I do want to emphasize that the memo is a comparison of the financial results to the budget, and as a city, we budget conservatively. So citywide, the main drivers as it relates to higher revenue were lower costs from GRDA and grants. I would like you to keep in mind that a portion of power cost is a pass-through to the customer, and there's very little impact on the city's net revenue from that. Also, grants, well, most of the money from the grants was related to the airport, and of course, that is not future funds for us to use. That just went right into the runway at the airport. So related to us coming in under budget with the expenses, the biggest drivers of that was, first of all, the Fire Station 1 renovations costing almost $2.8 million, which the new fire chief, after he assessed, he determined that wasn't the best use of our funds at this time. The other item was lower costs for personnel, mainly due to unfilled positions during the year. So if you have any questions, I can answer what I can now, and I'm available at any time.
Thank you, Christina. So, Alan, did you have comment? No? Directors, do you have any questions for Christina at this time? I would say no. Christina, thank you very much. So next are the ordinances. Item C is ordinance 25-06, excuse me, second reading, amending section 102-21 of the City Municipal Code, rezoning from R2 to R3 and R4, the 1300 block of North Britt Street. And Megan, are you? Briefing us on this item?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. Sorry, I was checking to see, I believe it's the third reading. That's what I have on my notes. I just wanted to make sure.
All right, then I will change mine to third.
Okay, thank you. All right, Megan Thomas, current planner. This is the third reading for a rezoning request located at the 1300 block of North Britt Street. As a reminder, the applicant is requesting to rezone the proposed Lot 6R and Lot 7 of the James West Kelchner subdivision from R2 residential medium to R3 residential two-family in order to allow for 2 duplex structures to be constructed, as well as to rezone the proposed Lot 5R from R2 residential medium to R4 residential multifamily to allow for the construction of 1 triplex dwelling unit. There have been no changes since the last reading, and staff is available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Directors, comments or questions for Megan? There is not. Is there anyone that would like to address, excuse me, ordinance 25-06? There is not, so I will come back to the board and ask, do I have a motion to place this ordinance on its third reading, suspending the rules and reading by title only?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Wiles,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Alan?
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance number 25-06, an ordinance amending section 102-21 of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code, City Zoning Map, rezoning from R2 to R3 and R4, property located at the 1300 block of North Britt Street.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 25-06?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Roll call.
Hunt,
Yes.
Rissler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carol,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Ordinance 25-06 is adopted. Next is ordinance 25-07. This will be the second reading, amending section 102-21 of the City Municipal Code, rezoning from R2 to PD, the 20,000 block of Bruce Rutherford Road. Ben?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. Ben Rhodes, Senior Planner. So before you is the second reading of the rezoning to PD, as the mayor stated, at the 20,000 block of Bruce Rutherford Road. This is going to the plan development. As a reminder, the Plan Development Review Committee, PDRC, did recommend to forward this application to the Planning Commission. And of course, as you know, the Planning Commission did recommend approval. The applicant requests rezones 51 acres from the R2 to PD that will allow for a planned community. The R2 zone, I was asked to provide some clarification on that, does allow just for single family without any amenities or design considerations, whereas with the proposed PD zone, it's single family housing of different types, but which will include amenities such as parks, landscaping, and that type of thing, which you wouldn't necessarily get in a standard R2. Applicant also seeks a future land use map amendment from neighborhoods 1 to 2 to better fit the proposal. Here, I showed this map last time, but just to review the different types, it's all single family, but they're just different sizes of lots. So we have those large lots, single family, and the yellow, more narrow lot, single family with rear-loaded garages and the purple shading in the middle, and single family attached with the shared wall and the brown. With that, I do want to also remind you, as we stated last time, there were some conditions, and we have those listed there. I believe those were read in with the first reading of the ordinance. So they would need to be continued with the second reading. And that we're real for any questions. Thank you.
Ben, if you would, just
Yes.
a question. Could you go back to the last slide? There was a question asked last week that kind of confused myself. If you look up at the left-hand corner, when we look at this, and for the R2, I think, and again, I don't have exact numbers, but let's just say we had 225 structures. And then once we went to this development, we went down to around 188 structures. It bumped back up, and kind of explain why, because in the left-hand corner, we still have structures, but they've been split for use, and that's why you're seeing the numbers. So if you would just touch on that a little bit. Unless I did really good.
So the number of units are higher than what we saw in the R2, because what they're proposing is a single structure that we're dividing down the middle, which would create 2 units, and so that doubles up the total number of units. So that's why it's higher.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Ben. Yes.
Thank you, Ben.
David?
Ben, on that map there, is there a detention pond anywhere on this for drainage?
I believe in the middle, but I'll refer that to our city engineer.
Madam Mayor, Kevin Moore, Public Works. They are proposing detention in that green parkland wetland area.
My only request is that we require fencing around any detention ponds simply because of safety concern for children. And with as many families are going to be surrounding this green space, I just think that's in our best interest to protect the safety of our citizens. I don't know if that's something that can be required, but just some type of fence around any water feature, whatever you call it. Is that be required?
That is in our current drainage manual. Areas, if it's an always wet detention pond. If it's dry under normal conditions, fencing is not required.
The only reason the duplexes and I guess quadplexes that were built on South Holly on the west side have quite a big water that does not have fence. And I know that was, I don't even know how many years ago, but I wish we had that back then, but we do now, is what you're saying.
Correct. Yeah,
requirement.
for a pond like that stays with the water.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Brad?
So on the PD, they're intended to implement the goals and objectives of the city's comprehensive plan. So my question is, second part, PDs allow for quickly identifying potential issues and overcoming challenges through multiple plan revisions. So we have had one revision. I mean, we had an input session. So as this goes on, as we're talking about retentioning pond, in that input session, can we get revisions that were recommended by the board added to this? Because I don't think we have some of the streets we added. There's a couple of things that we made recommendations on, and that's the beauty of the PD. And the second was, in that green area, just to the south of that, that's a traditional, very large, dry retention area. And so the objective, according to the developer, was the green area is going to be a wetland area and actually a feature to the subdivision, which these are already wet prairies anyway. So, but as we go through this process, I just want to make sure we get an update of what the board recommended and that we stay on target of the purpose of the PD. That is all. Thank you.
Ben?
Madam Mayor, yeah. So my understanding is that the conditions, and I believe I got the revised ordinance to Janae. She's nodding yes. So those conditions were written into the actual ordinance that holds the weight of what you're approving. So when that's in there, effectively that concept plan is changed. You're not seeing it visually, but it is changed with those conditions. So when the developer has to come forward with a proposal, we have to follow those conditions. It's not optional. So any actual development would be reflective of those conditions if they stay in the ordinance.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Brad?
But for wellness in the rest of the community, can we not get the visual that is reflected in the ordinance? Is that complicated?
I'll need to defer that to the developer.
It's a drawing. Make the drawing better.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Board of Director members, thank you. Jesse Fulcher, 4058 North College. Yes, we started working on that after, I don't remember, I think it was after our input session, before the last meeting, but we didn't have time to make the submittal packet. So with those comments tonight, I will get those done. In fact, we've already started with the 3 lots being removed out of the park, I believe. Director Carroll, that was a comment that you had. Director Burns was discussing some of the alley connections, as were some other directors. And so we've started to implement those. And then we've shown a couple additional parking areas there by the park for residents and visitors, and one more small area in the kind of on the east side of the development. So yes, I'll get those changes made. I'll get them to you and make sure they're distributed with the next packet.
Madam Mayor, I just want to say thank you. I knew it was possible. And that was Director Wiles that actually made the recommendation, and I just initialed next to it, so.
Thank you, Director Wiles.
As long as it gets done, I don't
Yes,
care.
sir. It will be.
Madam Mayor.
Yes. Yeah, yes, Mindy.
So, Ben, I know you said something to this effect in your presentation, and then Brad kind of alluded to it. But just one more time, since we talked a lot about how this started as R2, and I know there are concerns with planned development, tell us again, what are the advantages of planned development versus the R2 like we had before, from the perspective of the city? I've had that question a couple of times. Well, why do a planned development instead? So just another brief synopsis would be very helpful.
Certainly, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Yes, what the advantages of planned development is predictability is one thing. So when you do standard R2, you're going to get houses, but they're not really going to have a whole lot more there in terms of what the neighborhood will actually look like. As you know, anyone's been through different types of cities, have been through different types of neighborhoods. Oftentimes, those will all have the same zoning, but they might have a very different look, a different aesthetic. The PD gives a lot more control over the final product. So, for instance, we are requiring landscaping along the street right-of-ways. You know, typically you don't have those tree-lined avenues in a standard R2 development. We are requiring certain open space, green space parks, walkways, and even the style or the look of the home is somewhat being regulated by the PD because we're saying they have to be rear-loaded garages. So we know what that will somewhat look like. So the advantage is that we have a lot more amenities and things that we can request on the front end with the planned development that you wouldn't necessarily get with just a standard R2. So,
Will that development? Just out of curiosity.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Jesse.
Thank you. Yes, there will be. All of our communities will have a POA. Essentially, we kind of debt fund it until you have people in there that are paying their annual dues. And so we'll do that. We'll be doing the mowing of the common areas, those types of things, up until the point where you've essentially built out all the homes. At that point, you'll get the board members appointed within the neighborhood themselves. They'll take over control of their neighborhood and begin collecting dues on their own at that point.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address ordinance 25-07? Not? Board, do I have a motion to place ordinance 25-07 on its second reading, suspending the rules, reading by title only?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Bristler?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Carroll?
Yes.
Blair?
Yes.
Burns?
Yes.
Wiles?
Yes.
Hunt?
Yes.
And who made the motion and the second?
Lisa Bristler made the motion and Kim Wiles made the second.
So I would ask you all if we can add the wording with listed conditions to your motion and
Yes.
second.
Yes.
So we do want to add that in there. Thank you all. So next is ordinance 25-08. Second. Oh, I'm sorry, Alan. Your turn.
I'm usually the one.
I know.
Ordinance number 25-07, ordinance amending section 102-21 of the Siloam Springs Municipal Code, city zoning map, rezoning from R2 to PD, property located at the 200,000 block of Bruce Rutherford Road, the amending the future land use map of the Siloam Springs 2040 comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Now we will move to ordinance 25-08, second reading, vacation of utility easements, 2200 block of Highway 16. Looks like, Megan, you're going to do this one?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Megan Thomas, current planner. This is the second reading for a request to vacate utility easements located at the 2200 block of Highway 16. As a reminder, the applicant is requesting to vacate two 20-foot wide utility easements located to the south of Lot 1 and north of Lot 2 of the Soft 16 addition. There have been no changes since the last reading, and staff is available for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Directors, comments or questions for this? There is not. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address ordinance 25-08? There is not. So do I have a motion to place ordinance 25-08 on its second reading, suspending the rules, reading by title only?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Allen?
Yes.
Carroll?
Yes.
Blair?
Yes.
Burns?
Yes.
Wiles?
Yes.
Hunt?
Yes.
Bristler?
Yes.
Motion is approved. Alan?
Ordinance number 25-08, ordinance vacating and abandoning utility easements at the 2200 block of Highway 16.
Thank you. Next is ordinance 25-09, second reading, amending sections 38-122 and 38-123 of the City Municipal Code, use of fireworks. Chief Kendall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Board of Directors. We have not had any calls or comments on this ordinance change.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Directors, comments or questions? There is not. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address ordinance 25-09? There being none, I will ask if I have a motion to place ordinance 25-09 on its second reading, suspending the rules, reading by title only.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Carol?
No.
Blair?
Yes.
Burns?
No.
Wiles?
Yes.
Hunt?
Yes.
Rissler?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Motion is approved by a 5-2 vote.
Madam Mayor, can we put
Yes.
this on for its third reading?
You may certainly do that. Yes, sir.
I
Would you
make a
like to make
motion.
that motion?
We put 2509 on its third reading, suspending the rules and reading title.
Second?
We have a motion and a second to place on the third reading. Roll call.
Blair?
First, I will ask, is there any discussion on that motion that we have? I know, Betsy, you kind of had a...
Oh, no, it
No,
was-
you're good.
she said my name, so I was-
Okay. You're just ready. Okay, thank you. So, roll call.
Blair?
Yes.
Burns?
No.
Wiles?
Yes.
Hunt?
Yes.
Rissler?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Carol?
No.
Motion passes by a 5-2 vote. With that, Alan?
Ordinance number 25-09, ordinance amending Chapter 38, Article 4 of the Siloam Springs Code with respect to regulation of the sale and use of fireworks in the city limits.
Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 25-09?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt. Roll call.
Burns?
No.
Wiles?
Yes.
Hunt?
Yes.
Rissler?
Yes.
Allen?
Yes.
Carol?
No.
Blair?
Yes.
Motion is approved to adopt ordinance 25-09. Thank you, directors. With that, we will move to our resolution, Resolution 09-25, the Siloam Springs Water Resource Company, land sale, Ryan Cloud, $4,950.
Madam Mayor, point of
Yes.
order.
Yes, sir.
We have never updated the board of the Siloam Springs Water Resource Company this year. It still has Carol Smiley as the sole director, with you as the president. I'd like to make a motion that we put the entire board on the Siloam Springs Water Resource Company.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Lisa.
We voted, I think, and I think Ken
did.
Wiles and I was put
Earlier
on.
this year?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
I
if-
was just going to say,
if-
we
If I
do.
may, Madam Mayor?
Yes,
Wh-
Alan.
wh- In respect to Director Allen?
Yes.
What we did is, people were rolling off, and if that hasn't updated, apologies, we'll get that updated. But we, at that time, the election was going on, so we didn't know the results. So we wanted to add some more members once the election results came back. And the mayor and I spoke, but we haven't been able to bring that to the board. But I remember that Mr. Director Wiles, Director Rissler added that with the mayor.
And who was put on the board to replace Director Wiles? I mean Director Smiley.
Nobody. That once the election, we were going to come back to the board to see if you wanted to add any more to that, or that's the discretion of the board.
Right. As it is right now, the resource company shows myself as, I believe, the president, and then Ken and Lisa are the two members.
I
So-
did not ever remember us doing that. I may not have attended that meeting, so,
Well-
okay.
And that's possible, but yes.
We usually do it after the first of the year, and so I hadn't seen anything since January, and that's why I didn't know that it had been done.
Yes.
My apologies, Madam Mayor.
No, that's fine. Any other questions on the resolution? Oh, no, Jay, actually, you haven't given us an update. Please, sir. Thank you.
And I'm going to defer to our attorney on this. This is,
Yeah.
that I brought to the board, and we talked a while back. This was the adverse possession that our attorney's been working on.
Madam Mayor
Yes, sir.
and the board,
So this is an interesting piece of property. It's about 2.2 acres. Mr. Cloud purchased this property several years ago at a sheriff's sale in Adair County, not realizing exactly what was being sold. And thereafter, as he attempted to secure a loan so he could build some sort of a house or something on this property, he hopes to have a retirement home there, he learned that the title problems for this property were numerous. Including the fact that what he had actually purchased at sheriff's sale was an interest that derived solely from a lease, and that fee ownership remained in the water company. The water company, in its wisdom, leased this property for 99 years back in 1960. So that property, while it's owned by the water company, we don't have the right to go out there and do things on our property because we leased it for 99 years. And since 99 years will be ending relatively soon, we also granted the original lessee and that person's successors and assigns a 99-year option to renew that again for $10. So we may collect our $10 in 2059, and then that lease will be extended for another 99 years. So Mr. Cloud is still trying to seek funding so he can improve the property. Lenders don't quite know how to deal with long-term leases and residential property, so his lender said, we'd love to loan you the money, but you're gonna have to own the property. He approached the city. In fact, he stood here and addressed the board several months ago and said, I'd like to kind of buy this property, and the board said, well, we'll discuss it, we'll consider it. He came back with a proposed purchase price, which is equal in the amount per acre that the city is working on the sale of adjoining nearby property. And he's offering that price notwithstanding the fact that he has leasehold rights to be there for a long time anyway. So that would also, as part of the sale, if approved by the board, when that sale closes, the city will be dismissed from his quiet title action. So that's the background, that's some of the history. He's ready to close soon. It certainly is close to our intake structure. Any improvement will be subject to some stringent Oklahoma and DEQ requirements for special septic fields and things because of its proximity to both the Illinois River and our intake structure. If I can answer any questions, I'll be glad to do so.
Madam Mayor?
Okay, David, yes, and then I'll come to you, Lisa.
I just prefer to see an overhead map of where property is, and we have on every other previous land sale. We got nothing on this one as to where this is located.
Yeah.
The fact that you just said it's close to our intake really does concern me.
It's all relative. Everything down there is relatively close. I think it may be a half a mile. Mr. Cloud is here. Would you
Yes, sir.
entertain him?
Yes, Mr. Cloud, would you like to give us that
Is there
information?
any way to make get a map of this, Alan?
We're seeing if we can come up with
Okay.
a map, but can you answer a question?
I can
as
speak to, definitely,
Please state your name
Madam
and
Mayor,
address.
Ryan Cloud, members of the board. I'm currently at 3300 East J Street. I bought this property in 2020. And it is, it's off of Twin Falls Road, Lake Francis Road going from Arkansas side, East 612 Road. It's a Watts, Oklahoma post office address. And I could show you on my phone or any kind of display that we can get up here. I can speak to what Mr. Williams just mentioned, which is the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality requirements for building within a quarter mile of an open body of water. Like you said, it's very strict. It's not just a regular septic system. It's what's called an aerobic treatment unit. So instead of one tank, it's 3 tanks, and a septic, an oxygenation, and a chlorination. So by the time the water comes out of my treatment system, it's potable water. People put it on their orchards, put it on their yards. And it's something that the state of Oklahoma has been requiring, I believe, since the lawsuit over the nutrient runoff in the Illinois River. So they've kind of been holding up their end of the bargain and requiring people that build within a certain distance of open bodies of water in Oklahoma, in particular the Illinois River, to have a aerobic treatment unit. And I am a residential licensed contractor myself, and I've done these systems before on other people's property, so I know how they work.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David.
The other question I had was, I'm not real comfortable with this price. This price is what we agreed to with the state of Oklahoma. You can't find any acreage for this little money. And I think we wanted to make a deal to help with the state of Oklahoma situation. And this is not a nonprofit or a government entity or anything in this situation. So I don't think this is enough money for this property.
Thank you, David. Lisa? Did you? Oh, Jay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I appreciate the board's concern about the purchase price. I would remind the board that the city is absolutely welcome to keep this piece of property. The city is not entitled to go back into possession until 2059, and then if the lease is renewed, for another 99 years after that. So it's subject to a long-term lease. The city got the money for that lease back in 1960.
My confusion there is who made the lease with who in 1960? Like you were explaining it, Jay, but I got a little confused there.
Yep. Madam
Yes,
Mayor,
Jay.
that lease was made by Siloam Springs Water Resources Company, Inc. There were a number of long-term leases that were executed then. It was to, John Jones, an individual. And large tracts of land were leased in this fashion for whatever reason back in 1960. And those leases have since been subdivided and turned into numerous subleases, all of which are allowed by the terms of the original lease.
Thank you, Jay. Lisa?
And I don't remember the correct terminology. So on the other property that we're selling to the state, there is a, preservation put on it. How does that affect this land? Does it affect this land?
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
The other land that is subject to contract, parts of it are subject to a conservation easement. That conservation easement is down in what I would call the river bottom. This land is up on the bluff, so it's not a part of the conservation easement.
Okay. And we're talking about, because we was talking about the sale to the Oklahoma to do a broader easement. Did we not talk about it besides just what the creek requirements were?
Correct. That's for the sale to the state of Oklahoma.
Right, and so it does include most of the land, a lot of the land, but this one is not affected.
This is not a part of that contract.
Anyone else?
Madam Mayor?
Yes, David.
And Jay, you said the Siloam Springs Water Resource Company made this lease back in 1960. I didn't think the Siloam Springs Water Resource Company was in effect until within the last 10 years. The previous company was the Illinois River Development Corporation or something to that effect that the city owned for all this land.
It it may have been the predecessor company. I don't have the abstract in front of me.
Well, that's my point. I would like to see the actual lease that you're referring to and the map of where this land is. We usually get more information than the description of the property, and that's all that's here, really. I'm surprised that the city would have bought all this property and then started doing leases. You said to John Jones. I've never heard of John Jones. There were some other people.
No, it was just a random individual. I don't recall that person's name on that particular 1960 lease.
Okay, well, you said John Jones, so I wrote that down. Well, I would like to see this lease, because it doesn't make a lot of sense why we would be having leased this property back in 1960 when we bought it, to protect our intake. And on top of that, I think the board deserved to see the exact location of the property.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Alan.
Is this something the board would like to table, and I will get the information as needed? Because I want you to be very clear when we do this, because I understand we sell land, and I want you to be very clear and have all your questions answered.
Thank you, sir.
And I should have had a map on that, and that falls on me.
I'll make a motion to table this until the next meeting.
Before I have a second, I'm going to let Betsy,
Oh,
I think she has a
sorry.
comment, so.
Yeah, I too was surprised by the price. I mean, this is obviously usable land that he wants to build a house on versus the preservation easement. $2,250 per acre, just, I don't think you can buy that anywhere. I'm not real, that doesn't seem very appropriate. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do I have a motion then, to table?
Yes,
David?
ma'am. I'll make that motion.
And
I have a- I'm sorry.
May I, before that goes there, and I just want the board to be clear, when we look at this price, if the board wants to increase that price, we just got to know, this is under lease for another 30 years, and it's going to be a lease for another 100 years, and the only thing we can get is $10. So again, if that's something the board wants to think about, and a price, because we own it, but it's really leased. So,
But we just heard that it was sold to Mr. Cloud at a sheriff's sale. So there's a great deal of confusion here. Did he buy it? He thought he bought it. The sheriff obviously thought they could sell it. But now we're learning there's some lease, so.
that's why we feel, Director, that's why I feel good about the adverse claim, because we don't feel that he could buy it. It's city property.
Madam Mayor?
Oh, yes, Mindy.
So if the lease continues, the most we get in the next 150 years or so is $10, and he can't build on it, right?
Madam Mayor?
Yes,
He's able to build a mansion out there. I think his difficulty is banks don't want to loan money because they don't understand leases with residential loans. So
Okay, so it's a financial aspect that is holding him up right now, not the fact that he
that's my understanding.
doesn't own the land. It is very confusing. It's a very confusing thing. Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, David.
how is it that he can, if we sell the property, as the proposal is, if there's a lease that we're told we're not going to get any money on, how can he go build on it if there's a lease on it?
Yes, Jay.
Madam Mayor, he happens to be the owner of the leasehold interest for that particular 2.2 acres.
That convenient. I think we need to see the lease, and we need to have some explanation about the history of it, more than just what we have here.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Lisa.
if he builds a mansion on it, and 150 years later, who owns the mansion?
That would be the cities.
the city?
We have a mansion.
I'm not gonna be here to see that. We'll go with that Boston whaler boat we got for the.
We'll have a lodge. I don't
I'm going to start making plans.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I support the tabling if we can get the location, and we'll vote on it next time, and it's a no-win, it's complicated. The key for me is that the conservation easement for in essence, the old lake bed where all the sediments are the key to protecting our intake, not the upper hardland on hard shelf, but thank you.
Madam Mayor?
So, yes, David.
I appreciate what Brad just said. I just want to say once again that we are the stewards of the city's property and finances and everything else as elected officials. And so we need to have a better understanding before just signing off on something that is this obviously very confusing situation. And that's why I support the table.
Yes. Yes, sir. So do I still have a motion and a second?
I made the
Okay.
motion. Who, did
David,
somebody, I
you're
made the motion. I don't know who seconded.
Lisa seconded.
Okay.
Roll call.
Wiles.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Rissler.
Yes.
Allen.
Yes.
Carroll.
Yes.
Blair.
Yes.
Burns.
Yes.
This will be taken to the March 18th meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yes, sir. Next is Resolution 10-25, Final Plat Development Permit, Heritage Ranch Edition, Phase 5, 2270 Don Hill Road. Ben?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the board. Ben Rhodes, Senior Planner. This is a final plat, as the mayor stated, at 2270 Don Hill Road, zoned R2. This is the final phase. It's phase 5 of the Heritage Ranch subdivision. As you know, Heritage Phase 4 is just to the west of this property. And this part of the final plat adds 31 new single-family residential lots. Here we see the plat. There was a change in the plat from the preliminary to the final, which is why this had to go back to Planning Commission to be re-reviewed, and that is shown in the outline in the red there on the left. This is associated with a large amount of lots 28 through 31 due to an annexation of land that was a strip of land that was annexed in by the developer. As I said, Phase 4 is to the west, underwent board review due to the lots that were also similarly enlarged by adding new land to that proposal. Also, I want to note that there is a plat note indicated on the lots that are backing up to the existing house on the northeast corner of the property, limiting them to single-story homes, and this is in keeping with the plat notes on the preliminary plat. So this is nothing new. We've already seen this with the preliminary plat. The Planning Commission found that the plat, as presented, meets the minimum city requirements, subject to the recommended conditions of approval, which I have listed there. Note on condition 3 is a carryover also from the preliminary plat's condition. And so that is also not a new condition on the trees. There was some additional discussion at the Planning Commission regarding that specific condition. And the Planning Commission recommended approval with the conditions as stated originally in the staff report. However, they directed staff to look into the spacing of the trees, determine if that condition meets with best planting practices after checking with a landscape official. After consulting with the landscaper, it was determined that the requested tree spacing could be better suited if they were 10-foot offsets rather than 7-foot. The landscaper also suggested that the minimum tree height be planted no less than 6 feet tall. So what that would mean is if you wanted to implement those recommendations from the landscape official, this is again after Planning Commission, so it's an amendment to the condition. You can do so with implementing the underlined text within the condition, when I'm calling condition 3A, which states that the trees should be 6 feet in height and spaced no more than 10 feet apart. And so we do have a sample motion there on the left, if you guys wanted to avail yourself of using that. But anyway, this is just the instructions that we were given by the Planning Commission and just need to forward to the board for your consideration. And with that, we're available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Directors, comments or questions for Ben? There being none, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address Resolution 10-25? There is not, so I will then ask for a motion to approve the resolution number 10-25, subject to conditions 1 and 2, and subject to the amended condition number 3A, as presented on page 3 of the staff report.
That includes that, I lost my glasses, so you guys are gonna have to forgive me. That includes the staff findings?
Yes.
Okay.
That's based on the above findings. The following condition is recommended as an amendment.
For the trees,
Which is-
okay.
Yes, which is the trees.
Okay, so moved. You made it?
Yes.
So moved.
So Lisa has made a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve as written. The motion, yes.
Madam Mayor.
Reed.
Ben, did we do that right?
I believe so. If the sample recommend with the conditions 1 and 2, and then condition 3A.
I read
So-
that off of the screen there,
Yeah.
so is that what we're supposed to do?
I believe so. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So roll call.
Pat,
Yes.
Ritzler,
Yes.
Allen,
Yes.
Carroll,
Yes.
Blair,
Yes.
Burns,
Yes.
Wiles.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Resolution 10-25 is passed. With that, we will move to our administrator's report.
All right, thank you, Madam Mayor, Board. I have some expenditures to report. Instead of reading every one of these, they're all the same. There's 6 of them. So if you don't mind, I'll put all these 6 together. So I have 6 tech line 2,500,000 URD EPR primary wire. They're all for the electric department, and all 6 are for $35,125. And then that's all my expenditures. Just a reminder, join us for coffee and conversation next Wednesday, March 12th, from 9 to 10. And we'll be there a little early, stay a little late. Looking forward to meeting people and answering questions. Like I said last meeting, this is something that we'll look at maybe doing the afternoons, doing early. Just kind of wanted to just put this time and also give some dates for everyone to kind of to pick our next date in 3 months to do that. So looking forward to that. It's an opportunity to connect local leaders and share our thoughts. And then Siloam Springs was featured in the most recent issue of City and Town magazine for having received the volunteer award that will recognize cities and towns that exemplify this spirit and public service through volunteer initiatives. And then the last thing, we were still accepting feedback for Unified Development Code. People can visit siloamsprings.com to leave feedback and view documents on proposed changes and what's new. And that's what my report, and turn it back over to you, Mayor.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. So with that, we'll move to our director's reports. I would like to say thank you and congratulations to our community on receiving this volunteer award. I think that shows the spirit of our community and how much we care for each other as a community. And, you know, we haven't lost that small town feel and commitment to each other. So thank you to our citizens, because they're the ones that helped us win this award. So thank you very much for that. Also, I would like to say thank you to David for taking care of this board meeting last time. I appreciate that, David, as vice mayor.
Here's your picture in this city and town. It sure
Yeah.
is. I looked right as soon as Alan said it. I was like, yep, there it is.
There it is, that's right. Thank you also to our staff, our board, the administrator, for our ability to work together as a city and to do what's right for our citizens and to make this a great community to be a part of. Yes, sir, you have
I
something you'd like
just thought
to
of
say.
something when Director Allen showed the magazine. Just know AML's coming up and the room block is very, very tight. So we're going to be on speed dial trying to get some of those rooms. So if you do want to go and if you cancel, at least let Janae know where she can get you a room. I think everyone's contacted us to let us know if you're going or not. But that is June 18th, 19th, and 20th.
Good reminder, thank you, sir. So with that, Board, I will come to you for your comments, and Mindy, we'll start with you.
Okay. Alan, thank you for not reading 35,125 6 times. Appreciate that. Thanks again to the sanitation department for catching up on our trash after the snow that we had that week and we piled up. So I appreciate, again, their efforts for letting us put a little extra trash out at no extra charge. Thanks to the staff for holding the UDC meeting last week and for all those that provided their input. Sounds like there's still time to provide more input, so I appreciate the work that's being done on that. And while I was there, I got to take a little tour of the library and the new teen area in the library, which is a neat little area specifically for teenagers. So I was happy to see that. And I think that's it.
Thank you, ma'am. Ken?
Nothing tonight.
Right. Betsy?
I might have missed it, but do we have a timeline for the UDC? Like when?
We still have several hoops to jump through. We have some other meetings. We'll actually, you haven't seen the agenda, we'll be having a workshop on the 18th, if that works, that the mayor will call, that we'll be able to look at different things. And as you make your changes or suggestions, please go get those into us where we can start getting those ready. But that's our next planned event, it will be the workshop. And I know there's a couple other little things in there that we have to do.
I mean,
Do you know when? Yeah, when? Like what time you'll start it?
And I will send you an email tomorrow. I'll give you a list of everything going on.
I mean,
Well, in relation to that, I talked to staff a little bit. I think they're planning on having something by July or August, right?
Right, questions and.
Yeah.
It's quite a process. And we want to make sure
Something
people.
for us to be able to vote on then.
right, and that gives the citizens who are given input to give them a timeline. So thank you.
Our town hall meeting was very positive, and we want to give the board plenty of time to give their comments and also the citizens, so I'll get you a timeline.
Thank you. I've been out of town since the last meeting, so I don't have much other than to remind everybody about the senior center and all the great things, the outings they do, watercolor classes, food. It's just really a great asset to the community. So if you're that age, you should check it out.
Thank you, Betsy. Lisa?
Thank you, Rebecca, for getting up and speaking about the UDC. I've actually been receiving a lot of phone calls and texts. People are asking me, because they know that I've pushed for this for almost 6 years, because, and why I'm pushing for it. So I guess I want to clarify why I pushed for the UDC. I had nothing in mind except that I wanted to streamline the process, get rid of errors that, in one part of the code it said this, and another part of the code it said that. And to eliminate that, we streamline it and create the UDC. And so that's why, that was where my push was from. And citizens have contacted me because they're like, oh, are you trying to do this? Are you trying to do that? I want to clarify, that's the only reason I wanted I pushed for the UDC. I want to encourage everyone to go to the state of Arkansas. Right now, our senators and our representatives are in session. There are a lot of bills that are going through, and a lot of bills that affect our county, our state, our city. And stay in contact. If there's a bill you see, there's some very interesting bills going through that might pass. But if you see them in there, communicate with the representatives and the senators. They want the communication. They want the feedback. The best way they can represent you is knowing where you stand. I've had situations where I would vote on something, and after I voted on it, I had people say, well, why did you vote on it that way? Why didn't you take this, and this into consideration? Well, because I didn't know this before I voted on it. So feedback it means a lot to people that have to make decisions when they're voting. And so I encourage everybody to go out, look at daily. There are bills being submitted on a daily basis. And when you go to the bills, it shows you the history of the bill. It shows you videos of any meetings or committees. Like if it has to go to a committee, it tells you what time it's going to the committee and how you can watch it. They had one at the committee today. Well, they've had a lot of them. But if somebody rapes somebody under 12, that they want to make it where they can't rape anymore. And so that was in a committee today. And so it's very interesting, and it does affect our community. And so I'm just encouraging everybody to go out there and look at what bills are being presented, because they will affect you. And I also encourage you to tell them thank you for representing us, and encourage them, when they're driving back and forth to Little Rock, that's exhausting work. And they do it every week for months while they go through these bills. So I want to say thank you to Chief Miller and Chief Kendall for caring about your staff. I really appreciate the summit that came through that shows that we care about our staff here in Siloam Springs. And you almost become family, and it's not just a job. We want them to have the tools to do their job. Well, mentally, you got to be able to do your job too. And we care enough to make sure that our officers are taken care of above and beyond. And so thank you guys for leading that. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Lisa. You had something, Alan?
The director's talking make me remember something. I was looking at Janae. I just want to let the board know we set agenda today. Janae will be in training on Thursday and Friday, so if you need something from the city clerk's office this week, please reach out to Segan.
Thank you, Sarah. And just real quick, you made me think whenever you mentioned that for the summit. I don't think probably that our citizens understand what a big deal it was, the summit that we had here. There was some really, really high-ranking law people here. Chief Miller, if you don't mind, would you just kind of tell us the dignitaries from law enforcement that were here and how impressed they are with Siloam Springs? I mean, just very briefly.
Yes, ma'am, Madam Mayor, members of the board. We had Secretary Mike Hagan, kind of serves two roles for the Arkansas Department of Public Safety Secretary, as well as the Colonel of the Arkansas State Police, members of the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General couldn't make it because of some other things. Matter of fact, the day of the summit, as we were talking about this and suicide, Bryant Police Department lost an officer to suicide that day. So there was some confusion, but all of our Northwest Arkansas sheriffs attended and their staffs, their deputy chiefs, chief deputies, captains, majors, as well as the chief of Little Rock Police Department was up here in North Little Rock, and some others that I can't think of off the top of my head, but it was quite a turnout for given the weather and some other events that had occurred. So,
Absolutely, and thank you for putting that together.
thank you.
Reed.
Spring is coming, people. Time change is on Sunday morning, 2 o'clock? So we need to be ready for some good weather coming up. Chiefs, thank you for showing the leadership within our community, our county, our state. Quite proud to be part of Siloam Springs. And, I get up here and I say how wonderful everything is, and you probably are kind of tired of it. But the reason is because I live in a bubble. But I know that bubble is there because of our first responders who do deal with death, with seeing awful things happen, and they take care of it without us having to live with that. We have teachers who take care of children, educate them, and we don't see some of the struggles that the children go through and the teachers go through. Even with our churches, as pastors have to deal with things within their congregation. There are so many of us that I would call first responders that make it possible for the rest of us to live in this utopia, so to speak. And it is not unnoticed, so thank you. And on a lighter note, I would like to know if we could have a food drive, if we could maybe pass the hat or something so that we can have a clock that can work for us. I've been here, I think this is my 7th or 8th year, and boy, it would be awesome if we could. These new TVs are incredible, but
Duly noted, sir. We got the skylight, we got new TVs and fan, and I forgot the clock. I mean,
stand out and do a food drive. Sure love a new clock, or at least one that
I think
would
I can
operate.
find something, sir.
Yeah, you're not kidding us. We know it's not 6:35.
We just got started.
Yes, we just got started.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Reed. Brad?
Madam Mayor, just please go to Walmart and buy a digital clock and don't make it complicated. I had to use IT today for a computer Outlook issue, and because don't have that skill, so thank those guys for taking that time out. I did attend the UDC input session. Much like Director Rissler, I'm a pusher of that. In fact, I'm beyond that. I'm form-based code guy. But I had good conversation with Jim Caldwell, Donnie Bunker, sent some great emails and input, and I just talked to city staff tonight. And they are implementing those in the next revision. And so that's important for people to know. It's happening, and it's the real developers. People like Jim Caldwell have been here actively surveying this city when I was just a grunt at the fire department. Maybe I was a grunt in the military. I mean, it's been a while. So we need to make sure that sounding board is happening. The UDC, it is critical for us moving forward as a city. And so I'm excited that we're there, and it's a long time coming, and it's taken a lot of people to get there, and so we need to make sure we do nitpick it and make it proper. I was happy to see that we also attended the Governor's Tourism Initiative down in Little Rock, and that's a huge thing. And I've said it again, it's a tax revenue that doesn't come out of our pockets, and it has a potential to help us in the future, not in the near future, but in the future, hopefully flatten some rates out. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad.
Madam Mayor. Chief Miller, thank you for enforcement gathering. I mean, it says a lot that we can sponsor, or what's a better word, host these events as we've done for the fire department as well in the past. Bad day for anybody to be wanting to rob a bank or something when you got that many law enforcement. So, but I'm just glad that they liked seeing our city. That was important. And that you had people from Little Rock here as well. I cannot express my appreciation enough, though, to Chief Miller and Chief Gilbert because of his background. The mental health support, your video was amazing. It really was. And it's pretty obvious the family attitude that comes through in the video. There is a stigma to asking for help. It's so overlooked at large organizations, the suicide prevention. It still floors me, startles me, how little our federal government does for our veterans on suicide prevention and how many we lose. And we do not appreciate our veterans enough. But I was so pleased a while back to learn that HR, when they informed us that we've got mental health in our health coverage for our employees. As someone who's experienced a great deal of suicide within my group of friends and family, I just really appreciate the care for our safety personnel and other employees to be able to access that. So thank you, all of you. I too want to give my appreciation to the Bunker family, Don, Connie, Donnie, Savannah, and even Karina. I'll bring up Karina too. They have been in town for many, many years, rebuilding, redeveloping the historical district and quality housing, but we do need to listen to those who are involved, and try to work through to get rid of some of these useless problems like sidewalks to nowhere. It costs developers a lot of money when it does not have any coordination with other developments or with the city. And I just truly appreciated the 2 emails we got from that family on trying to better our city. I mean, Don and Connie have lived here so many years, but their kids grew up here and now live here and are bringing the 3rd generation up. So it's important that we have family that have skin in the game to give their input, and I appreciate them a great deal. I don't know, I started to say, Chief Allen, if you can do anything. I found 14 emails in my junk folder for the city from local citizens, not junk. I mean, we get a lot of junk, but these were local citizens sending to the board regarding the deck at the Lankers Place and the community building. And I remember 3 or 4 years ago finding junk had personal, or not personal, but local citizen emails in the junk folder and was told there's nothing we can do about it. There's got to be something we can do about it because we can't risk our citizens not being heard because stuff goes in the junk folder.
And
So
I appreciate you reporting some of that spam we were getting. You were able to get on top of that. So if you see things that look strange, board, please let IT know.
I always feel like it's better to
virus.
report it and it be nothing. We're marking that. But these here are, you know, local people emailing and it's going right into junk. I don't know why it's addressed to board at Siloam Springs. So for some reason I think if anything's addressed to board at Siloam, well, I guess you can't just say it won't go to junk because then we'll get all the spam that we already get.
And where you know, Segan's not just keeping minutes. She comes to the meeting and when you have questions, it works better on your questions. So she'll give me all that tomorrow and I'll make sure I get this information back to you.
Really good that that you've got a note taker.
I'm all over
because you're talking to us. So yeah. I will just say, I wish someone would ask for reconsideration tonight on the duplexes on Copperleaf. I continue to revisit all the many statements from staff on other developments that, well, it abides by the master plan and it goes by the zoning, it does all these things. So where there's nothing we can do, this is on questions on other things. So it just seems like there's been a double standard. I have nothing, I don't know this person, I've received the same emails the rest of the board has, and it just has seemed different regarding how he was denied than some of the other things, and I wish someone would reconsider because I don't think it's fair. And I really do think we have to be fair, cognizant of level playing field to everybody, and I think that's important, and we all, I think, work at that. I say all, meaning staff, board, management, everybody. Anyway, Brad, I will say thank you for your service in the Marines. I don't think we appreciate our armed services enough, and so, and our police, and our fire. Safety personnel, I call them. So anyway, thank you, folks, and I will make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Thank you. We are adjourned.